3, 2. Welcome back to another episode of the Prospects Live Dynasty Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Almaguer. I'm joined by Ralph Lifshitz, Matt Thompson. This is our first, video Prospects Live Dynasty Podcast. Of course, if you've been a fan of Prospects Live for the last few months, you've certainly been used to our faces for a while. Certainly Ralph's face for a very long time. But this is the first time we use this platform for a little Prospects Live Dynasty chat. So, boys, how you doing? It's been a while since the three of us were together for a Dynasty podcast. Ralph?
Not too bad, Eddie. I'm just glad that you had trouble with your own last name today. It made me feel a little bit more confident as the host going forward and saying your last name. So, well done there. That was a real confidence booster. I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's just a little brain fart. Matt, my man, what's going on?
I'm just glad to see that with our little time off, I came back out of quarantine with the best hair of the three, so I'm good.
Whoa. Hold on now. I will never relinquish my hair throne. Boys, with the three of us back together, I can get back to some of my zany questions. So if you had to convince someone that they needed to jump into a tub of mayonnaise, a kiddie pool of mayonnaise to save their lives, but you can't tell them it's to save their life, how do you convince them to get in there? Ralph, I'll start with you.
I would just tell them it was a great way to sanitize for the coronavirus.
Ooh.
Okay, so you new research has been popping up. Mayonnaise is really.
I'm sure we could get the president to tweet it if you wanted.
Matt, you got to convince someone that jumping into a tub of mayonnaise is what they need to do right now. It's to save their life, but they can't know to save their life. What do you tell them?
Hey, it's this real good way to keep your skin looking nice and milky like mine. So
you might get some wins on that.
That is what you do on a normal basis, though, right, Matt?
Keep this color. Yeah.
You rub a little mayonnaise on yourself. Good. Well,
you can't make fun of yourself. You can't make fun of anybody at all, right?
Love it. All right, boys. Well, I'm glad the rust is not showing with the zany questions. So kudos to you guys. So let's jump into a little bit of fantasy baseball, a little bit of dynasty baseball. First thing on our docket, maybe the biggest piece of dynasty news, is Michael Kopech, Chicago White Sox flamethrowing right-hander. He has officially opted out of the season. Certainly the highest profile prospect to opt out. I think one of just two guys now who has opted out who hasn't made a boatload of money, Joe Ross being the other. Michael Kopech, just definitely a surprise, I'm sure, both to the White Sox and to us, of course. Matt, I'll kick it off with you. Initial thoughts on Michael Kopech. I guess taking off. Obviously, we're not going to criticize him for opting out or anything like that. But I guess from a dynasty perspective, I don't know. How do you take the news?
Well, I'm not sure. He's one of those guys from a baseball perspective. I'm not sure. Like he probably wouldn't have had a solidified role all year, right? He could have been bounced back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. And
I don't think he had a solidified role coming out of spring. He was a number 6 guy essentially.
But now Carlos Rodon is back, so that might kind of drop him down a little bit. True. I mean, you got Giolito, Keuchel, Ronaldo Lopez, Dylan Cease. I mean, everyone's got their issues, but I mean, Gio Gonzalez, and kind of the combination of him maybe not having a solidified starting role, and people are forgetting he's coming back from Tommy John. That also plays a part. I know he's got to be roughly over 15 months since surgery, 16 months. So, I mean, he's obviously healthy on that part. He was throwing in the fall. When I was in Arizona, I know he was throwing in some rookie-level games. But, good for him. If he's got the ability to do it and doesn't feel safe, more power to you. And, again, the White Sox will survive. Dynasty leagues, it sucks. I mean, you have to hold them. You're not cutting Michael Kopech in a Dynasty league because you have room. I mean, you're not going to do that. It's a real bummer, though, if you're one of those teams that's trying to be competitive. Like, do you take a look at your prospects list and say, okay, I got Kopech and I'm just going to throw a name out there. I got Kopech and Nate Pearson valued kind of similar. Do I see maybe if I can make a trade there? I don't know. Just think about something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting, and like you mentioned, especially if you are one of those teams that had Kopech waiting in the wings to compete. I mean, I'm a win now dynasty manager, and I certainly would have had Kopech on a couple of teams. I actually don't, but he's certainly someone I would have targeted if available. And now that bullet in the chamber is gone. This is someone who now won't be pitching into 2021. Reminder: the last time he pitched in a major league game, last time he pitched period is 2018. So all of 2019 gone, all of 2020 gone, and then we got to wait till 2021 now. Ralph, Michael Kopech. Let's jump off of Matt's question here. It's too much. It's too hasty to make any sort of move with him, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I could see, if somebody that's not a win now team in a dynasty league has a player that could potentially help you, obviously a high value and it's an add-on or something like that, or even a 1-for-1 swap. I could see making the trade now. But, when I look at the Kopech situation, there's sort of two ways to look at it. You can either look at it as like, this guy's going to be 25 when we finally sort of get our opportunity to see him, when, he ascended to, the upper levels of the minors relatively quickly, considering he had the suspension and the broken hand. There's kind of always been stuff with this guy. Unfortunately, it was Tommy John previously. And then, now this decision, certainly is a personal decision. And I don't think there's any reason to sort of have, pass judgment on Kopech one way or the other. But he does have a track record prior to this that, I could maybe see, looking at it as like it's a frustration point that you do want to move on from the guy, but it's not going to be that many games. You're talking about maybe you would have gotten, let's say somebody gets injured, best case scenario, maybe he makes 6 starts, 7 or 8 appearances. You're really not getting all that much out of him unless you're in like a best ball league like ours and you're just hoping to accumulate as many stats as possible. But he's a guy that in 2021, I could imagine is in the rotation. They find a spot for him. If I'm not mistaken, I think, is Gio Gonzalez out of contract? Was it only a 1-year deal?
1-year deal for Gio. Yeah.
So, there's an opportunity there for him to slide right into the rotation and he'll be fully healthy. He kind of was already there, but for me, this isn't like hitting. The timing thing and being away for 2 years is a major issue. When we're talking about pitchers, that's actually time for him to almost build up strength, work on things, and sort of come back with a real sort of focused and refined skill set. You can do that. We saw it in all these prep events. I know it's amateur guys, but we saw in all these showcases, all these pitchers that we hadn't seen in 6-7 months. Some of these guys came out and were completely different guys. And I mean, when I was doing the show with Joe, going over the 2021 draft class, a guy like Maddox Bruns jumped 100 spots. I would imagine a professional who gets paid, has access to the best equipment, the best trainers, nutrition, et cetera, could come out of the shutdown like this, a real force. So I would expect, Kopech to come back in 2021. He's a guy that I would definitely buy low on if someone's hitting the panic button and moving on. I don't think he's going to contribute that much this year anyway in your dynasty league. So it's probably, neither here nor there.
And he, anyone who opts out is not going to accrue major league service time. So, he won't be shooting himself in the foot that way. But yeah, you mentioned his age, Ralph. He turns 25 April 30th. I mean, kind of a bummer just to think of someone who, I mean, you would think in a traditional life, 2021, like he'd be maybe a year and a half into his major league career. And now it's like, you kind of feel bad for him. He's going to be free agent at 30, 31. That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that should certainly change. We'll see what happens with
that's all going to change.
CBA. That could certainly change in 2022. Yeah. But I know this is maybe a silly way to sort of look at it, but I almost feel like he's still 24 next year. Like there's a year for a lot of these guys because of Corona that more or less has been wiped. It hurts in terms of looks and all that sort of stuff, but there's guys that are getting out there and getting their reps one way or another. And I think a lot of these prospects that we'll probably talk about later, or, that we certainly cover on a day-to-day basis on the site, guys that aren't playing, or, I would imagine there's going to be something in September, October, November at the complexes, or some safe area where they can hold baseball.
This isn't going to hurt him past this year either. I mean, regardless, he's going to be throwing on his own. He's going to be going through a program by the White Sox, and Kopech, for better or for worse, is a guy that's also gone outside the White Sox organization to go get help. So, like, he's still going to be throwing. Yeah. It actually might be kind of, and I know I don't want to say there's good things and bad things that come out of this. It's a crappy situation for everybody. The whole world's in a crappy situation. But the White Sox are going to get Kopech for a full year instead of 1/2 year.
Yep.
So that's actually kind of beneficial to – I hate saying it like that, but it's also beneficial to them as well. And probably him. I mean, like you said, it's not like he's going to be sitting at home watching it on TV. He's going to be working out. Kopech.
He's a gym rat. I mean, there's no question about this guy taking care of himself.
Yeah, so he's going to be throwing every 5 days.
He's good.
Oh yeah, he's going to be going. He's been hanging out with his new wife. I think he just got married recently, so they'll be living it up and training.
Riverdale actress.
There you go. So he'll be good to go. I'm looking forward to seeing him pitch in 21. And bummer he's not going. I respect the decision. Good for him. What do you do with David Price is a different situation for dynasty owners because that one kind of stinks. You can't really replace that for this year. But
I mean, he was like a number 3, number 4 guys for your
but when you're in a 20-team league, you're counting on those 3, 4 guys.
Yeah, it hurts. I mean, you ask your team, why are we still playing this year out? Right. Why aren't we doing a redraft instead? Which is what I'm trying to get my home league to do.
What's compensation for opt-out players? That's what you want to figure out.
Yeah. An extra first-year player draft pick. Let's move on to the next opt-out news. Earlier this week, we learned Buster Posey opted out in the last episode of the Prospects Live Dynasty podcast. Ralph, you were talking about Joey Bart being one of the guys you think can make an impact in 2020. This was before we learned Buster Posey opted out. Of course, you were theorizing that this might happen, and it has. But the team has kind of been a little, they've heard the Joey Bart cries come out, and they've kind of gotten ahead of it and said Joey Bart is someone who needs a little bit more seasoning, kind of already preparing us for the chance that we might not see him this year. And if we do, in a very limited get your feet wet type of role. Ralph, I'll start with you, man. You had the Joey Bart call. The reactions of what you've seen in the news around him since Buster Posey opted out.
Yeah, and then I saw a story today that Patrick Bailey could see service time this year, which seems completely crazy. So
Bailey over Bart would be strange.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with Bart is it's funny because it's the same reason that we don't push catchers throughout the minor leagues. It's sort of the same reason that I think a lot of these catching prospects need major league time. He needs to see live in-game situations. He needs to see pitchers with good stuff, all different types of breaking balls. He's got to get into that routine of, working with the pitchers, calling a game, sort of the routines that they go through and learning the pitching staff. I think there's a lot of value in that. I don't know how San Francisco could handle it. They could run out. I know they had a couple of two retreads that I can't even remember the names off.
Rob Brantley, Tyler Heineman, and
Heineman was the one I remember.
Aramis Garcia, who's injured.
Yeah,
FIU.
Yeah, so that's the group. Right?
Yeah. See, I kind of feel like, this is language that allows them to keep him down for 7 to 10 days or whatever that vesting period is or whatever in order to accrue the additional year of service time.
To work on all of his defense and all those minor league games that aren't happening.
Exactly. They'll probably do that. They'll probably do that and then call him up.
Well, then catch a couple bullpens and call him up.
He needs live at bats too.
Certainly.
He
didn't even get a full stint in Arizona.
Yeah.
He busted his hand up.
He got hurt in the AFL.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know. I mean, he's in terms of catchers, he's so far and away one of the better catching prospects in the minors, and he's polished. He's a guy that came out of Georgia Tech, which is a very strong program in terms of developing catchers. And I think, he's a guy I believe that in college called his own games too. So for me, I don't think there's a whole lot he has to learn. He needs reps. He needs actual in-game reps against high-level competition. He would have been a double-A, triple-A guy this year anyway. What's the difference against some of these 60-man rosters, the way things are going to look, Too bad he can't face the Giants and what they'll be rolling out there on the other side. You pop him on a decent team out there in that Western circuit, he'd fit right in. He'd be fine.
I mean, do you think teams like the Giants, who aren't going to be heavily competing, especially in the NL West, even in a season where more crazier things can happen? I mean, this is a team whose lineup isn't super impressive, whose rotation isn't super impressive. They're a middle of the road team, in my opinion. I mean, can you see a scenario where they just don't want to, bring them up to one, save some service time, and two, just keep holding them down?
Yeah, I think that's the easy answer. That they could just hold him down for service time reasons, but he'll be 25. And it's not like a pitcher where you're kind of saving up the bullets. he needs high level reps.
Well, and catchers, man, when they age, like man, it's like a steep decline into how much they can put behind the plate as they age.
I don't think you need an extra year. For me, I think you got to get them up, and that core should start to come up to the major leagues over the next year anyway.
In a regular season,
2021, they're talking about, I would imagine Bishop and maybe even Luciano could be pushing for the majors at that point. We'll see.
He's probably looking at big league time in around September anyways in this year. I mean, and I think people are underrating this. You talk to anybody that's in baseball or scouts or evaluators or anything, you know how much competition matters? Like there's no real competition in these satellite camps. Like there's just not. Like they're well intended for sure to keep players getting reps and stuff, but how much competition can you expect in an empty stadium? You can't simulate game reps. So they're not. You can't. It's a controlled environment, and you're not going to.
The best argument is like what Ralph said. You got to face like the real major league pitchers that have the real major league stuff. Right. But I mean, like I don't know how much the adrenaline is going to be pumping in these stadiums where you got to like pump artificial crowd noise to get your energy up. Which I was actually hearing.
Still money on the line though, man.
Yeah,
there's still going to be arbitration dollars out there to grab.
There's a lot of pride too. They're professional athletes. I mean, they're the best of their craft.
Why go through the motions? Why put your family through this? Why do all that if you're just going to go through the motions too? I don't know. I feel like with a catcher, it's different than Vlad Guerrero a few years ago or Bo Bichette 2 years ago. There can be guys that are ready for the major leagues, or even like Louis Robert last year. Certainly, the White Sox were competing; they could have called them up, but when it's a catcher, it's a college draft pick that you had a number 2 draft pick overall on. Getting that guy to the major leagues, number 1, is the goal. I think you have the opportunity to do that. But even beyond that, I think that you look at that position as an on-field leader, and you'll have some crossover maybe for a year or two with Posey as Posey phases out. I think that gives him some sort of on-the-job training in terms of like that leadership role and all that sort of intangible stuff that people talk about with Bart and a lot of these, high-level catchers. Adley Rutschman, sort of the same conversation. Certainly, more talented overall, but same kind of class, a catching prospect. Guys like that, can sort of be the leaders once the younger players start to come up. I think it's a good overall culture building thing. And I know that we fantasy guys like to throw that out because we can't put numbers on it, but that's the way teams work. And that's the way like actual sports work. Like, it's some of that unmeasurable stuff that it's just a comfort level. And when we talk with a lot of these different prospects and in different interviews that we do, I feel like comfort's one of those things that comes up constantly. Like, it's just a matter of comfort. I'm comfortable with my swing. I'm comfortable with this event. I'm comfortable against, seeing 95 mile per hour fastballs near my head. It's all that sort of stuff. And I think that that's a big thing in baseball, is building up that comfort level, whether that's in the clubhouse and on the field and just all the things it takes to be a professional.
There's a lot of value to be around Evan Longoria and watching how he prepares himself to play every day. For real, there is.
Yeah, I mean, because they have some veterans there, that
Hunter Pence.
They could start to plug in, and they could start to plug in some of these younger guys next year, especially if they have them in camp and around some of the professionals, the major league guys, seeing how they do it every day. Sure. I think there's value in that.
So, salient points from the both of you. I agree. I think this is a season where you can't be concerned too much with service time. Like, I'll bite the bullet if you got to wait 1 week to bring someone up and then do it.
And all the rules are going to change anyway.
Be it, So hopefully we see Joey Bart. Hopefully we see some more prospects that maybe surprise us that they're up in the majors. That's always fun. A silver lining to such a short season. Let's move on to a small little piece of not as big as the other opt-out stuff we just talked about. Logan Gilbert, a flame-throwing right hand. I don't know about flame-throwing, but, disgusting right-hander for the Seattle Mariners. He did pitch in an inter-squad game today, a couple innings, a couple strikeouts. The notable thing is, though, Corey Brock of The Athletic reported that he isn't going to be, even though he's on the 60-man squad, he is not going to be making his debut this year, or at least it is extremely unlikely. And not a terrible surprise. Logan Gilbert, even as good as he was last year when he climbed from full season to AA, he only has 9 starts under his belt above high A. So definitely understand. I still think he'd be league average if he made the majors, but Any surprise from you guys from either of you here, guys, from Logan Gilbert kind of getting the kibosh on 2020?
You're going to see a lot of players that don't have announcements like this that are going to be in the same situation. So yeah, exactly.
Cool. So 3 discussion points, boys. I think all pretty interesting to break it down. I want to get your viewpoints. The first one, something that's kind of been in the fantasy community already for about couple weeks. Mike Trout. There's question as to what does he do regarding the season. Does he opt out from the very beginning? We know his wife is expecting their first child at the end of July. Certainly, a newborn is a good enough reason to opt out. Not that anyone should have to defend it, but we saw Buster Posey opted out because his family is adopting twins. And he said because they were premature births, that's why he took the precaution. So Mike Trout, certainly first child, a huge event in anyone's life. As always, I don't want to boil everything down to fantasy, but that's what we do. That's how we are. So we're not going to talk about that. But where do you consider him now in a redraft, for example? Obviously, dynasty leagues, we're not going to entertain any trades or drops, of course. But we'll take a redraft detour here. Ralph, Mike Trout, we've seen him go in some mocks. I think Pitcherless mock had him go 5th overall.
Yeah,
in the Acuna. I think it was Bellinger, Garrett Cole, and Christian Yelich. I think there was a league where he fell 12th. I think an NFBC league, but I don't remember where exactly.
One where he went 15th today.
So he's falling little by little. Is there a floor for you, Ralph? And I know early on, a few days ago, you said he shouldn't be going that low, but have you maybe recalibrated your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna miss, I don't know, whatever. We think it's gonna be 2 weeks. Could it only honestly be like 5 days, and it's maybe like 3 or 4 games, and then really doesn't matter? Are we sure it's going to be 2 weeks, or is there still a chance you can opt out the rest of the season?
That's the biggest deciding factor. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have that risk factor there, so I don't know how you necessarily handle it, but I'm
going to pull up some NFBC ADP data here real quick.
I probably wouldn't let him get past me at like 7.
Yeah, I was gonna say off the top of my head, Yelich.
So I'll start here. Since July, so last 12 days since we're recording this, July 1st. The top 5 is Yelich, Acuna, Bellinger, Mookie, Mike Trout. That's where Trout's fallen since then, about 3 spots. He's gone as low as 14, as high as 2. So 14 it seems to be his floor for now, and 14 NFC ADP. We're talking Walker Buehler, Max Scherzer, Arenado, Jose Ramirez. Ralph, you said 7 was your floor there, so that's kind of the Lindor, Trea Turner territory. Matt, what about you? What's your floor for Mike Trout? I feel like you're a bit more hesitant to buy into Mike Trout this year.
Yeah, I would definitely have Yelich, Acuna. No order. I'm just listing names. Yelich, Acuna, Betts, Bellinger, and I might go Cole and DeGrom and then Trout. I might put those 2 premium aces over Trout, but definitely for sure those other 4 bats. So what are we talking about? 6th or 7th pick for me. So I'm kind of in the same boat, but it'd be hard to watch him rake if you pass him up, right?
Yeah, because we were actually looking up the protocols before we jumped on as to if someone leaves a team when they come back, what is that protocol? I assume with someone like Mike Trout, they're not going to force him to quarantine for a couple of weeks. I was trying to dig, guys, through there was a good Athletic post about that detailed a ton of the bullet points of the 67-page document that MLB shared with the Players Union before they agreed to the year. I don't know if it's a matter of getting 2 negative tests in a span of maybe 3 to 4 days. If someone's listening and they know the answer to this, please let us know, because that's kind of a big deal. But even if he misses, say, I don't know, maybe like 7 to 8 games, you figure a couple of days of paternity leave, and then the process of getting back onto the team after being cleared for any coronavirus issues. We're talking the 7 games. That's 10% of the season, man. And that's a decent amount, and you talk about 10% of a regular 4 games, regular 162 game season. We're looking at 16 games, so it's almost like a DL stint, if you will, if he misses 5 games, 6-7 games. Ultimately, not as consequential as maybe we're making it out to be. You know, I think we're maybe making a lot out of nothing because it is Mike Trout. You guys said your floor's about 7. I think I'm about the same area. I might go a little bit higher. I think where he is right now, 5 is where I would maybe let him drop. I don't think I take a pitcher over Mike Trout. I don't think
I'm thinking about it myself, and I don't think I could either.
I don't think Trey Turner, Juan Soto. Nah, I mean, maybe Mookie Betts. Yeah, he has something to prove considering he's got to make some money next year. But I think NFC has got it right. And any closing thoughts on Trout here, Ralph? You were going to say something?
No, I agree.
Cool. So, Mike Trout, if you're in a redraft league and you're wondering what to do, we wish there were more answers. Hopefully, we get more clarity. I don't believe there is an opt-out date, if I'm not mistaken, guys. Correct, for players to say they don't want to play
anytime they want. I think, yeah.
Okay, so with the season still about 2 weeks away, roughly, it can happen at any point. So, if you are planning on having a redraft league, just like in spring, I would hold it as close to the season as possible. In spring, it was to avoid spring training injuries. Here, it's to avoid unexpected opt-outs. Okay, with that done, let's go on to a couple of Twitter questions we received. Jumping back into the dynasty conversation, Tim Rader wants to know if there was a cancellation of the season. So the season starts, but unfortunately, something happens where they can't handle the coronavirus testing correctly and they got to shut it down. How do you handle 2021 Major League, 2021 first-year player draft, or this is a Spencer Torkelson class? How do you handle that when all of a sudden there are no standings to determine which of your league mates drafts first, or no consolation ladders or anything like that? Ralph, we had a very brief conversation on this last week, but I think we were talking about maybe how to handle it this year. But if there was nothing, do you have any suggestions for listeners out there? I got one that I think I would do, but I want to turn it over to you guys first.
Yeah, I think I would do an auction. And potentially a slow auction because it's fun as hell on Couch Managers. I think you could program in all the names of the players. So there'll be some legwork on your part. But the cool thing is, depending upon, you can maybe look at like 3-year standings and have like some small deduction of money to sort of balance it out, where it's maybe like a $10 or $12 difference between the top team and, a mid-tier team or something within that budget. And there's sort of like a floor number. But you can have varied budgets on Couch Managers. You can do these things called slow auctions that Matt's actually in my 30-team league that I run where we do it. And
so fun.
It's a ton of fun because, you could have 30 players on the board and everybody can bid at the same time. And there's all these bids that are going. And essentially when you upbid after a certain point, it restarts the clock back to like 4 hours.
4 hours. Yep.
Yeah. Where if you did it like within the first few minutes, you'd probably reset back to 8 or whatever. But you could set the clock for an hour and 2 hours if you wanted to too. But the cool thing is if you set it long enough and then you have a pause period, you can actually go to sleep overnight. We do this because we have somebody that's in Australia that's in the league. So it's a lot easier to deal with all the different time zones and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I would do. I would do a slow auction. I would find some sort of equation to, break up the budgets that are available to each team within the auction based upon maybe like a 3-year performance thing. I wouldn't just want to look at last year. I would want to look at a bigger picture thing, and overall performance and that sort of thing. It's tough. Or you could do something crazy like you could OOTP the entire season out and just see what the hell happens.
That'd be interesting. I'll give a second recommendation for Couch Manager slow auction drafts. I did it, I think a couple years ago for a 16-team auction league where no one could come to terms on a live draft. So we did an auction draft. Some people didn't like it. I loved it. Like you mentioned, on the timers.
Yeah,
I think
very simple website.
You can set it where it's like it starts 8 hours on the clock, and no matter what the bid is, that the time starts clicking down. But maybe at like 1 hour or 2 hours, every time there's a new bid, it resets. So definitely, Couch Managers is definitely a flexible website to help you out with that. Matt, we got Ralph's idea, an auction with some sort of weighted dollar amount based on where you finished the last 3 years. What about you? You got any tricks up your sleeve for what managers can do?
I like that idea by Ralph. There's another dynasty league that I'm in that we're actually majority voted not to play the season out.
Yeah.
But we are not going to reward the last place team with 2 first overall picks in a row in a first-year play draft. So what we're going to do is whatever is played, we're going to each take whatever the entry was for the league. I think it was like $50 or whatever. We're going to put that onto DraftKings and do a DFS league, and that's going to set your first year player draft order.
Wait, so whoever has the best performance on DraftKings over the season?
Yep. That's how you set the order. It has nothing to do with current rosters on your dynasty league. It's just.
So is it everyone does?
You can make leagues. You can make your own little leagues, and you can compete against each other. And I think that's a fun way to do it. You can talk a little crap while you do it, and kind of it determines. And if you miss a day, it's not going to kill you. It's not going to it's not. You can miss a day if you want. It might hurt your chances. If you're doing well, you can make it up. It's not like I just feel like it's the easiest way. It's fun.
Wait, so a follow up here. I'm so far away from the DFS scene. I'm probably closer to fantasy football than I am DFS. Is it like you draft a team and it stays with you throughout
every day?
Every
team every day.
Every day you pick a roster.
Every day you pick a roster. We can all roster Mike Trout on the same day if we wanted to.
I think we're going to have to do a DFS contest with some of the listeners.
We're going to have to. But it's fun.
We should do one of the leagues.
I've done it before. It's been a long time.
You can make a league for like 20 people, and you can compete against each other.
So like one day I get 150 points. You get a 130. The next day I get 0. You get 100. So it's a roto adding up. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Okay.
So we're gonna do it that way. I think the money in the league. I don't think we're worried about that. I think everybody's just gonna walk away with nothing money wise as far as the DFS goes, because the money you put in the pot is going back toward the league next year. But that's how we want to do first year player draft.
Cool. Those are two good suggestions.
I don't need Jason Dominguez and Torkelson on the same team. So
mine are much more simple. One would have been taking a weighted average of the previous. I like 3 years. If your dynasty league has extended out that far, the previous 3 years finishes of a team, average it out, and then assign an NBA kind of style lottery pick to each of those teams. So if maybe there's a team that finished in a 16-team league, I don't know, 13, 15, then maybe they were the worst average of that team, never having actually finished last. They get the most tries at the first overall pick. Again, just like the NBA lottery style. Second pick.
Grab that cold one. The cold little ping pong ball gets you Michael Jordan or Patrick Ewing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Another option, one that I'm trying to move my home dynasty league to do again. It was a suggestion from Ralph. It was freeze a year and start a roto redraft fantasy league, and winner of that gets the first year player draft, and then you just kind of work your way down. And so everyone's competing for something. The teams that are normally tank have a way to fight for it, and if they don't win it, well, they don't win it. And there have been picks already traded from 2021 in my league. We're just going to honor it, So if I traded away my 2021 pick, a few months ago, and I got first overall, well, then someone else has my pick. That's just the way it is. Cool. Yeah. So you have about 4 or 5 options there, listeners. If you guys are trying to figure out a way, if something happens, the worst happens, cancellation happens, you have a way to get around that. We're going to take a quick break, guys. We'll come back with our last question. For our podcast fans, you're going to hear a break. For our StreamYard fans, we're going to look awkwardly and stay silent. So give us your best awkward silent faces, guys. And Matt just kept his same face no matter what.
That's it, man. Mail boy.
All right. Last question of the night, boys. Here's a question about the strategy you plan on employing regarding statistics. I think this extends obviously to redraft. No Tippin Pippin wants to know, do you punt steals in a shortened draft? And I kind of just want to open it up to a more general discussion about how to tackle specific categories in general. Ralph, I'll start with you. Are there any categories that you've already identified that you aren't going to chase, or that you are going to chase, or do you kind of just stay the same course?
Which pitching categories aren't you punting?
Get out of here, Matt. Saves is probably the category that I'm least concerned with chasing. And I feel like in drafts this year, what's happened is a lot of pitchers are getting pushed up. But certainly a lot of closers and like some of these mid-tier guys that where they're going, I'd much rather take another starter or a hitter. And, I think it's going to be much more of a game of, getting a ton of counting stats on the pitching side, especially if you do have like innings as a category.
Yeah.
Then that kind of devalues relievers, but particularly closers. The other part of it is the volatility of closers in that shortened season, where any of these guys, any of them, because I mean, 2 weeks ago when I was in a few of these drafts, where Aroldis Chapman seemed like he was as safe as possible, he had a positive test. You know, it may not delay him. I don't know. I'm not going to read into that, but it could. And I think that's something that we have to weigh. The other part of it is 2 or 3 bad games, especially as we get beyond the first 20 days of the season or so, and we're in, you know, mid-season form. We're right around the All-Star break. You know, I think guys could lose jobs like that, drop of a hat, and we could see a lot more committees. There's already a few teams that have talked about piggybacking starters. I know one in particular is the Braves that have been really sort of on record about it, sort of hammering that they're going to piggyback a few guys. And there's a couple of spots, I think, on a few different rotations where we may see a bulker with an opener and more of a bullpen game. Some of these relievers are going to be used differently. I would much rather chase a guy like Nick Anderson, who seems to drop to like 12 to 15 in terms of where closers are going, get all that K upside, and sort of chase guys like that where there's a huge benefit to your numbers just simply because of their ability to miss bats. I'm not chasing saves. Everything else, like, I don't want to punt steals because I still think you can get guys early in the draft that will cover that for you without killing you in the power, the counting stat numbers, or batting average, or on base percentage, depending upon what kind of league you're in. There's plenty of guys out there where you can get stolen bases, even a singular guy like, you know, a Mondesi or something, and then you could supplement that with a handful of guys. You know, some of those big difference makers like a Trey Turner, a Mondesi, a VR, they are really going to make a big difference, I think, in the steals category. So I could see punting it maybe if you can't get one of those guys, but going through these drafts, I still feel like there's a lot of steals available.
Yeah.
Even a guy like Monty Harrison might steal, 12, 13 bases or something if he gets enough run. And everything that's come from Mattingly and the Marlins, it sounds like Harrison's going to get some significant run this season. Or as much significant run as you can.
They might be like the team to watch on MLB Extra Innings this year.
I
Might be
think
the funnest team. Yeah.
Music to my ears, boys. Now I want to kind of hit back a little bit on the closer stuff, Ralph, because if I'm looking at the NFC ADP, closers are experiencing a huge spike. So someone like Josh Hader, his ADP is 47. That's a jump of 21 spots.
Corey Knebel's back too.
We're talking, that's like, I think, 3rd round in a 15-team league.
Kenley Jansen has a positive COVID test as well.
You mentioned Nick Anderson. He jumped up more than 30 spots. His ADP is in the 8th round of a 15-team league. Yeah. So these guys are jumping up a lot. So you said mid-tier, Ralph? So wait, so when you say you're punting saves, like, what does punting mean to you? Because these guys are going a lot earlier.
I'll take the guy that falls. Whatever the draft is, I'll take the guy that's in the top 15 or so that has a decent job that falls. If it's Kella, if it's Nick Anderson in a couple of drafts that I've been in, what
about Brandon Workman?
Workman's been going earlier than Anderson in most drafts that I'm in. I don't know what the ADP is.
8 spots behind Anderson, actually.
Yeah. I think it depends on the draft. So maybe I'm just in drafts where they don't trust the Rays save situation and they trust the Red Sox are going to use Workman, which I think they will. I think he is the closer. That's not a bad pick. It's when they're going in the 4th, 5th round, 6th round, that's a little too rich for my blood, especially in like a 15-team NFBC. If it's a draft champions or something without waivers, that makes a big difference to me. But yeah, I mean, I think there's 9 other categories you can hammer besides saves, and you can find them here or there. There's always going to be guys that you can pluck where you can figure it out. The other part of it too is I think there's some closers who aren't closers right now who are coming back over the first month of the season. Corey Knebel's already thrown. When he's been on, he's been a good closer. They like to use Hader in a variety of roles. It frees him up to be more versatile. I know he threw in an inter squad game the other day. If he's a full go, that I don't know. I'm not sure that Hader necessarily sees more than 60% of the save opportunities. Maybe that's hot, but I don't know. It could even swap completely. And I know there's other people that think the same thing. And then the other one that I like, and maybe Matt will back me up on this, but Jordan Hicks is going to be ready at some point within the next couple of weeks. And he's another guy that's almost free that I would absolutely take a shot on.
I've been told with Hicks that they feel like if they put him in the closer role, that's an easier job for them to manage his appearances as well. Keep in mind, he won't be doing the back-to-back thing, but he'll have a set role. Hey, ninth inning's yours. And
is that because the Cardinals don't expect to win, so there's going to be a lot more off days for Jordan Hicks?
You talking about the division champion Cardinals? I can't remember what you're talking about. Oh, you're talking about the Marlins. No, the Marlins.
Don't trigger
the up and coming Marlins. Matt, so I want to answer our boy No Tippin Pippin's question real quick. How you would handle steals specifically, and if you want to maybe shed some thoughts on saves or any other categories of how you're leaning.
Weird thing with I don't know how you guys feel like. Back in March, I would have had a guy like Nolan Arenado ranked over Jose Ramirez. I think I flipped that now because I think I want the 5. I think the stolen base production for Ramirez is something I'm going to push up because a guy like him will run. Trey Turner will move up a few spots in my eyes because he can run.
Back in March, I drafted Jose Ramirez over Nolan Arenado.
Well, see, there you go. Okay, well, I mean, I think the common ranking would have been Arenado over Ramirez, I believe. But
yeah,
I think I'm with you now. It's close. I mean, those two guys are close. That's maybe not the greatest example, but I'm pushing the bona fide speedsters that aren't going to kill me up. I'm Jared Dyson and stuff like that. I'm not touching those guys. Those guys, Malik Smith. I'm still not interested in those type of guys. But I think you can find power still later in drafts, and I think there's. So
you're thinking take guys that contribute in other categories, not just steals. You're not maybe leaning hard into the Mondesies.
Exactly. Yes. Give me the multi-category guys that have roles. I think right now, with this abbreviated season, normally you draft skills, not roles. But I think that's kind of reversed now. You almost kind of want the roles because it's such a short season. Obviously, it's case by case, but I kind of think you push up the guy that has the job.
I think the bad closers could crush
Wade Davis.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with Wade Davis. I don't really want like Joe Jimenez either. I
Michael
want
Gibbons or Hunter Harvey
I would almost rather have like Ryan Priestley than some of these closers.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think speak to what you're saying is I think you take the top 12 to 15 guy that falls, and then you kind of just load up on ratios guys that kind of you hope they have a chance to get the job. I think unless you're in a very deep league, if you're in a 15-team standard redraft league, I think there are going to be closers that aren't going to be drafted. And you're like Michael Gibbons, for example, Hunter Harvey. I don't think those guys might be drafted at all, and because people will be tackling the more racial-friendly pitchers.
Yeah, I own a lot of Harvey too. Harvey's another guy I've been going.
Ryan Helsley, take him if he's available.
Oh man, yeah, Helsley's been getting some nice helium recently.
Yeah.
So I think the way I would be leaning, guys, is I think when I'm looking at holistically, I think I'm leaning more into the streaky guys. If I'm being honest, I'm willing to risk it, do or die.
You gotta be careful though. You can't take too many of those guys. You want to take give me Michael Brantley like all day in a year like this because you know what he's going to do.
I love Brantley. Yeah,
you know what he's going to do.
But
maybe pair him with like a Mondesi, but don't take Mondesi and like.
Mondesi and Joey Gallo. I mean, I would do that.
That's actually pretty nice. But
those are two streaky guys who can have like a 6, like they could have like a 20-game streak where Gallo can hit maybe like 8 to 9 home runs.
Don't have Mondesi and Buxton on the same team. Don't do that.
I don't know.
Don't have Buxton on it.
Yeah.
I don't have. I'm trying to think of other streaky guys like that are don't
Justin Upton.
Yeah, is this the second half or the first half? That's the mind game. You got
Adam LaRoche.
No comment. But
I don't know. I mean, I think there's so much chaos this year.
Yeah, I just think you have to draft the roles.
Like previous years, the patience is going to matter.
The funny thing is, part of me almost just thinks, man, I'm just going to kind of just do what I always do: draft the 5 category contributors, mitigate risk, and then just play the pool. Just stay active in your waiver wire, guys. This is going to be a crazy season with Fab, with regular free agents, like waiver transactions. Like
Fab is going to be all your saves. That's where your saves are going, is on Fab.
Maybe
it's going to be a disaster. But I think here's the name to shoot up. I know I'm a Cardinals fan. It's going to sound obvious, but Harrison Bader is going to play for that team every day in center field in 60 games. That's not enough time for him to run his job out. He can run he might be a source of stolen bases for you late. Like guys like that have offer good defensive skills that are going to play. 60 days isn't going to be enough time for the Cardinals to sour on Bader. He's had bad 60-game stretches before.
Just only start him against lefties.
Right, if you have that ability in daily league, yeah, of course. But like you know what I'm saying, right? Like
even against lefties, great stream. 12-team leagues, unlimited moves, roto, 5x5 with OBP or average. I prefer OBP, but whatever. To me, this season, that is the format. Like a 12,
got to be daily moves.
15-team league. You have everyday daily rosters, everyday moves, unlimited waiver. Just boom. You know, you can make 30 moves. You could change your whole team every day if you want to. Just chasing those off-day full rosters. That's what it's all about this year for me.
How excited is Gray? Because he's like the premier roster baiter in fantasy baseball. Like, how excited is he for to just roster bait?
All of his tools at Rasball are going to be running overdrive today, trying to figure out the optimizers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the RCL game. I just want to say that I beat Gray in his own league.
Oh, there you go.
In his own format.
So now it's Ralph's league, right?
The year before I started Prospects Live, and then last year I was kind of like I don't have nearly enough time to play in an RCL.
So it's Ralph's format that Gray hosts.
In though, man, I'm all about RCLs because half my dynasty leagues have banged. That's a scout term.
Yeah.
There is most of them have canceled, especially considering some of them are head to head. Some of them are points leagues, and then the other ones are like weekly leagues. Like some of these like expert dynasties I'm in, like Devil's Rejects. It's weekly, man. I'm setting the roster and just whatever happens. You know,
and it'd be a hell of a decision to make down the stretch when you're winning a game and somebody opts out. Do you drop them to win the title this year and just screw yourself over potentially next year, or do you just kind of ride it? That's kind of you don't want to make decisions that are going to do that are going to affect the whole league just based off this. You don't want to do that.
For the record, I want to also know, Ralph, that in 2011 I won my first and only RCL thanks to a dropped Lance Berkman. That was his revival season. I'm sure you appreciated that season, Matt, with the Cardinals there.
The underrated hero, not David Freese, but Berkman.
Yeah. All right, boys, that's going to do it for us. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Prospects Live Dynasty Podcast, or watch this episode of the Prospects Live Dynasty Podcast. We have a lot of content coming up in the next few days, next couple of weeks, as we help gear you up for the season. We got reliever rankings dropping. We got pitcher rankings dropping. We got hitter rankings dropping. We are still churning on the MLB draft content. By the time you hear this, you will have seen the top 100 2021 MLB draft rankings. Ralph Lifshitz and Joe Doyle doing a tremendous job with that. We'll have a lot of more ancillary stuff coming up as well. And we do want to mention that we have rebranded our P Live Best Ball, our 5-year Best Ball Championships that have 660 teams entered. Thank you if you're one of those guys. We have rebranded to the Dynasty Baseball Championship. Hashtag TDBC. That's the way we're shifting away from P Live Best Ball. It's a bit of a mouthful to TDBC.
Be careful typing that in for hashtags. Yeah.
So
I just want to mention too. This is just the 2020 year. I plan, like at least myself. I'm going to invest in probably 2 of these teams every year. I'm going to do a 50 and a 250 every year, and we're going to roll out the drafts every single year. And you're just going to be crowned champion based upon sort of your draft class. So this was the 2020. Inaugural draft class. We'll have the 2021s, 22s, 23s, 24, all the way up to 2060 when we pass this along to our children. But it's Smarter and I were talking about it, and
I have to update the will.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about the way that it rolled out. We did a great job. Unfortunately, we missed, 102 games of the season the first year, and there were some adjustments that had to be made there. But, I think going forward, hopefully we should have 5 full years, and it's just the way it is. But it's amazing to think how these things are going to play out in 5 years. Teams we thought weren't good could be amazing.
I looked at my roster the other day, and I was like, damn, okay, I can roll with this. Like, I was kind of unplugged for a minute from baseball, and then kind of got back into it. I was like, okay, these rosters aren't bad. Let's go.
Mine is set up.
Universe, and you're going to have like a 200 player list, maybe 300 by that point when the next year's drafts kick off from all of our draft coverage. And another thing I plan on doing is integrating in some of the J2 guys that are, that have some notoriety, as well as some of the 2022s and 2023s even that might be interesting prospects. We'll see how that goes. But build out a big old list for, all these open universe leagues and, give you folks some more resources to sort of pull from. But we cover so many levels of baseball, you should never run out of names to draft over on Fantrax.
You can get lost on Prospects Live. We got a lot of stuff. That's good.
And if you want something else that we're not giving it to you, just holler at us at Prospects Live on Twitter.
Tom Moose's got the KBO, so you can go there.
He has MPB, my friend.
Oh, MPB.
Not the KBO. Let's
apologies.
Here. Tom Musa, he's finding his own niche. The KBO is way too popular now. Tom Musa's a hipster. He's with the MPB right now.
Yeah, there we go.
He likes the better league. Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Take care. Thanks for listening along. We'll catch you next week. Peace.